Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Janine Poggi, editor of Ad Age. Thank you so much for joining us. As we head into this year's TV upfronts, the ad world is grappling with an upheaval to the measurement standard. Amid Nielsen issues that include losing its accreditation status, there's a flurry of measurement upstarts that are all vying for a place as an alternative currency. Joining me today is Kelly Abcarian, Executive VP of Measurement and Impact at NBCUniversal, who's at the front line of trying to solve for today's measurement issues. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Janine. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, measurement has definitely been something that the industry has been dealing with for some time, trying to figure out solutions, but it really seems like it's hit a bit of a crescendo over the past year.
Look, I think it's never been a more exciting time than to be in measurement and to cross the landscape of companies who are trying to work to solve some of the biggest challenges. And I think as we move ahead, we're going to absolutely see the ecosystem really evolve the types of metrics that get used in transactional models to help advertisers really understand not just the counting, but the actual results and the impact.
Do you think we will see real meaningful change this year?
I do think we'll see meaningful change. I think the consumer is rapidly changing across the landscape for all networks and publishers, and the need to keep up with the consumer is critically important. I think as we, head into this year's upfront, I think we're going to continue to see multiple currencies be brought forward, whether that's across data-driven linear that has had quite a robust marketplace over the last 2 to 3 years, and quite honestly, a whole slew of data sets that are used in which to try to transact on, or across streaming and digital, as many advertisers are really looking for those impressions to be better connected, so that they can really see it all, so that they can count it all and value it all. And so I think there's really not a single currency concept anymore. It's really being driven by the fact that many advertisers have a plethora of first-party data. Ourselves, like at the network with our direct-to-consumer app and our NBC Unified rollout that we announced recently, we also have a large harness of data that can help our advertisers activate and unlock a better consumer experience, as well as better connect with that exact consumer audience that they're looking to reach.
Yeah, and we'll get into all of the issues and all of the alternative currencies and data usages. But before we get started, for those of you watching at home, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them on our social channels. And if you like what we're doing here on Ad Age Remotely, please like, subscribe, share, or retweet this post. So Kelly, let's just level set. What are some of the biggest issues in measurement at this point that NBCU and the rest of the TV ad world are really trying to navigate and solve for?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of three core issues. The first is that the measurement is historically been disconnected. You kind of had the digital measurement grow up in its own silo, and then you had linear measurement continue to, really be challenged to evolve and connect to a more kind of scaled model where no longer do the ads have to travel with the content. When you think about streaming viewership, 97% of our audiences are actually reached on the television glass. And so it's not about linear versus streaming. It's about measuring all impressions and being able to measure what advertisers care most about, their advertising. And so I think the first issue is really reconnecting the measurement that should have never been disconnected in the first place, so that as an advertiser, you can get a holistic plan and understanding of the most important aspects of your media buy, whether that's really understanding what the true totality and reach was, or understanding the type of frequency that you're hitting the consumers with, and really being able to take advantage of having those impressions better measured together, so you can create a more complete plan that helps you better optimize for the consumer you're trying to reach, but also the breakthrough of the message and the conversion that you're trying to drive. So I would say that's problem one. I think problem two is, we need better transparency on these measurement approaches as we move ahead. And I think that was a lot of the work that we did with our lookbook. It was really to try to unlock the transparency side by side across the measurement landscape.
Can you
Um,
explain what the lookbook is for those watching that aren't familiar with it?
oh, sure. Thank you. I always take for granted that potentially people are aware. So we created a measurement lookbook, and I'll give you a pretty visual here. And
It
it's
is actually a
downloadable.
lookbook. It's an
It's actually
actual
a
book.
lookbook. Um, and it's downloadable on our NBCU Now website. And we did this because when we kicked off our massive RFP process, our goal was to bring transparency, learning, and education back to the marketplace. And so what we did inside the lookbook was we took 25 attributes across what we called 3 value variables, in which to basically put side by side the cross-platform currency measurement companies that are looking to provide services out to the marketplace. And
How many
inside of that
companies are
look,
in that book?
I'm sorry,
How many companies are inside that book?
there are 8 measurement cross-platform companies who currently are, bringing forward solutions that kind of solve problem one that I talked about, really trying to connect all impressions across the premium video ecosystem. And so, the goal around that was to help people understand things like their methodology approach, their approach to weighting, their approach to accuracy, and how they handle representation. And as we move to a multi-currency world, we really feel this is pretty important, as no two estimates will be the same. They've never been the same. They will continue not to be the same. But we want to ensure that the industry has the full education so that we can all transact with confidence. Today in digital, there are already multiple currencies, and there's probably a lack of real transparency around how that data gets constructed, especially when you think about the walled gardens who often construct the data themselves. So we know that it's already possible to basically transact on a multiple currency, but education is going to be critically important here, and transparency by the measurement partners to be fully transparent with the marketplace on how they do what they do, and to be much more open than I think measurement has been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, but the TV industry historically has long just been a Nielsen industry, and it's long just transacted predominantly on one currency. How hard do you think it will be to move into a world where there are multiple currencies and you're trying to compare one measurement, service against another and things like that?
I mean, like I said, you're right. Linear TV has been historically on a single currency, but over the last few years, that has also bifurcated. With data-driven linear driving scale of being able to overlay a first or third-party audience, you need large data sets to be able to find those types of audiences. And that's where a panel itself can have challenges in which to do that with the same reliability and accuracy. And so I think the industry has already embraced a lot of tenets of a multi-currency world in linear. And across streaming and digital, there really isn't a single currency today that is being transacted on holistically across. I do think, like I said, education is going to be key. That's why we kicked off a pretty massive test and learn, really to allow the industry not only to get an ability to evaluate the data themselves directly and evaluate the integrations we've done to make measurement seamless, but to really educate them along the way around when we move from a kind of linear proxy-based average commercial minute world to a real exact second by second advertiser centric measurement world. How do they think about this new world on several sets of kind of somewhat you could call complex topics, whether that's thinking about the no longer the need to equivalize, the impressions anymore, because when you measure second by second, you don't need to equivalize a 15, a 30, and a 60 any longer, just as an example. So there's a number of these topics that we're bringing forward during our test and learn and helping to provide the education that we think is going to be a critical underpinning to drive confidence in the marketplace.
Yeah, I definitely want to spend a little bit more time talking about the testing and what you're uncovering. But you mentioned transparency and the importance of transparency. Nielsen, of course, has long been the dominant measurement player, but it lost its MRC accreditation in September following an undercount of audiences. How much does the loss of the MRC accreditation, that transparency, impact the industry at large?
Look, I think the industry at large has placed importance on MRC accreditation over the years. And as we move ahead, I think that's going to continue to be so. As we think about the, MRC and the partners that we're working to bring forward, we're really in a new measurement era, and new types of data sets that really historically have not been what the MRC has taken great, have the broad expertise around. And so I think the accreditation process also needs to evolve with the industry. We believe independent audits on the quality and, more important, the accuracy are important. I think historically the MRC audit more represented an understanding of, does a company do what they say they do? With not as strong of a focus that we would like to see moving forward on the accuracy of the data itself. And given that there's billions of dollars that are being transacted on these data sets, accuracy has to be a key driver of any form of accreditation, including full transparency on the confidence levels of the estimates being used, where that transparency is actually resting inside of the user interface, or resting inside of the APIs or the data outputs that the measurement companies are producing, so that advertisers as well as agencies and networks have full transparency around, what is the level of confidence that is sitting behind this estimate that likely is representing billions of dollars of transactions against. And so I think, Janine, we're in a moment of transition as an industry, and the approach of what it looks like as we move ahead. We just need open and honest transparency to how the accreditation evolves, to keep changing with this evolving technology landscape and evolving consumer. We're really encouraging the innovators that we're in touch with to have discussions directly with the MRC, as well as for the MRC to be very open to these innovators and new approaches as well.
So you are looking for those measurement platforms that you're working with, some of the newer ones that you're testing, to, in fact, go back and get MRC accreditation, but that is not a barrier of entry at this point.
Yeah, we are encouraging partners to start to engage in the process. We know that that process is not a 1 month process, or even a 6 month process. We think that better measurement is critical to move forward with now. And the reality is there is no accredited service out in the market, whether you look at linear TV ratings or digital ad ratings. The accreditation of the Nielsen services themselves are in process of an MRC. I don't know if it's reaccreditation, but it's regaining accreditation.
So, I mean, to this end, NBCU issued an RFP in the summer to kind of take stock of the competitive landscape. What is the state of that review?
Can you ask that question again? I'm sorry.
The NBC's review process, the review of requests for proposal of measurement companies that you guys put forth in the summer. What is the state of that as you look to alternative currencies?
Yeah, so we kicked off that process in August, and at the start of the process, we had initially sent out the proposal to 54 companies. And we were very delighted to have almost 120 companies participate through the end of the year. So
I didn't even know there were 120 measurement companies out there.
Well, if you look at beyond just transactional of audience measurement and audience verification, and you really go fully across into the world of impact, where you're looking at MTA, MMM, incrementality, and then really starting to get industry and category specific, whether that's pharma, financial, telco, et cetera. There's a lot of innovators out there really trying to solve that other really important second half of the marketing funnel equation, which is once you can count it, how do you amplify and understand the impact it has had? And so, I think where we're at in the process is we are finally through the 120 RFP responses. At our 122 event just the other week, we announced another milestone in our measurement journey, which was we officially named 7 additional certified measurement partners across the first 2 key categories of audience measurement and audience verification. And as we head into this upfront season, we wanted to make it clear that at this point in time, we are transacting against our certified cross-platform partner, iSpot TV. And the other companies that we certified, though, and we'll speak about this when we talk about some of the learnings from the pilot, it's more than just one company these days that enable us to truly unlock and measure the full breadth of our audiences. And so it was really important that we certified things like the ad catalog and ad servers and streaming viewership, kind of second by second data of partners like Conviva provide. And obviously ad verification around the quality of the who and the quality of the impressions themselves. And so this is only the first stage of our journey. We're preparing for kind of moving ahead to the impact as well as business planning categories and starting that certification process come the end of the year.
Why did you feel confident in iSpot? Why are they the first ones that you gave the certification to?
Well, it started with the Summer Olympics, where we actually tested a multitude of measurement partners, anyone who had cross-platform measurement already brought together in a product that we could actually test the data on. And through that internal test that we did, and we ran about 16 advertiser campaigns over the Summer Olympics across the entire duration of the Olympics, iSpot really rose to the top. And then through the RFP process and all of the looking at the attributes that we wanted to evaluate and understand, once again, iSpot rose to the top. And then we brought them forward for both the Super Bowl and the Olympics. Really the 2 biggest stages that you could possibly bring a measurement partner to. That's the level of confidence we had. And it only built throughout the course of the Olympics as well as the Super Bowl. And I think it was, a combination of all of the work that we did, both in terms of the actual testing of data to the actual evaluation of companies with formal presentations, responses, et cetera, and then really bringing them forward during Super Bowl and Olympics, and now in a Q1 test and learn where we have 66 brands leaning in to really understand the benefits of what we have seen and we want to unlock as we move ahead.
What did the data reveal? Were there any surprises or findings that you saw in these tests that surprised you?
Well, I won't say anything that surprised us. I think it was actually really re-anchoring a lot of not just our own internal folks, but the press and everyone alike around what does it mean to actually report on ads versus programs. I think historically the industry has, really just got around the fact that the metrics that the currency can produce today in a timely manner really is tied directly to the content versus the ad delivery. Ad delivery takes 12 plus days in which to get any kind of understanding of what that truly looks like. And I think what was really great with iSpot was within 24 to 48 hours, we were producing new metrics on added completion rates, on ad load, being able to quantify our ad load in comparison to all other networks and the impact that can have in terms of engagement as well as impact. We were also able to, quantify how many ad impressions we had served on linear the next day, and within 48 hours cross-platform. And so for us, that was really the game-changing moment, because when you think about the Olympics, you're dealing with second by second, where every second matters. And so being able to measure the Olympics in that same manner, where every second matters, really was truly exciting. We were able to produce an understanding where, top moments like Shaun White or Michaela Schriffen and other athletes, what was the swell and size of the audience, not only in that moment, but tied directly to the advertising that sat around those moments. And so I think, we saw that 26% of the Olympics were cord cutters, we also saw that within the first 5 days, 100 million Americans had already watched the Olympics for at least an hour. So we were able to really get our heads around very robust metrics, very, very timely. And if you think about if we were transacting on that, and our advertisers were doing the same, the type of optimization we could do together more collaboratively as we move ahead is really a game changer for everyone.
Any issues that you saw with the data or issues that you're working through with some of the data providers?
Look, I think, whenever you're trying to do something new, you always uncover challenges. I think one of the things that we did uniquely here is that we did a integration with iSpot to basically bring across all of our streaming and digital endpoints, so that in a kind of server to server way, so that there was no need for brand advertisers to create pixels or to have to do any kind of tagging. And the reporting granularity we were working to achieve was still at that brand level identification. And so you can imagine the type of metadata work that was also involved in trying to make sure that we got the right brands and sub brands and advertiser taxonomy to connect back to the linear catalog, where iSpot had done a decade worth of work with advertisers directly, really building out that ad taxonomy. And so I think that was probably the biggest aha, is like what we needed to collectively do, but also enlist other third-party partners, whether that's Freewheel and some of the ways that they can collect metadata, whether that's getting the industry to lean into embracing ad ID, which we have embraced ourselves, but really trying to get that type of momentum as we move ahead. It's going to be really important. If we want to measure ads, getting that metadata about the ads right, so we can connect impressions across all endpoints, is going to be critical. And I think that was the biggest aha moment. And we've got a plan in place in which to try to, work to scale this as we move ahead. And so I would say that was probably the biggest learning we took away, is when you're trying to measure ads, and you're trying to measure discrete ads, there's a whole level of new work that the industry needs to partner on and work collaboratively together to make happen.
I'm Janine Poggi, and I'm here with NBCU's Kelly Abcarian. Hi to those of you who are watching at home. We have Judith from New York, Alicia from New Jersey, Oscar from Costa Rica, and Alexander from Orlando. Thank you so much for tuning in, and feel free to post any questions or comments, and we will try to bring them into the conversation. So Kelly, where does Nielsen's cross-platform measurement that they're working on, dubbed Nielsen One, fit into all of this?
Well, I think we're optimistic and hopeful that Nielsen One will meet similar needs that we're finding that iSpot is helping to drive for us right now. We currently are not a pilot customer of the Nielsen One, and we don't really have the level of transparency of what is in that that pilot or that alpha that they have underway. I think at the end of the day, what we understand about their plans, our ask would to be ensuring that the value of premium content does not get left behind. As they work to bring forward or bring into the fold impressions across the walled gardens, where formats and the kind of platforms and the delivery of those ads are very different in nature than long form premium content viewed on a TV glass. We really would encourage them to, evaluate how they're going to do that in a way that doesn't try to equivalize impressions in a way that actually doesn't measure the uniqueness of these platforms and the uniqueness of what television delivers back to brands.
One of the other big issues in this measurement conversation is sort of the inequities in data. While panel measurement has certainly has its documented issues, how confident are you that big data sets really do a better job of capturing data from ethnic minorities? And are there inherent biases in those data sets?
Look, I think we're very confident through the work we've done over the last 9 months more directly on cross platform. We saw this play out firsthand, actually, with the Super Bowl when we aired the Super Bowl on Telemundo for the first time. And by the way, a first for Spanish broadcast. And iSpot measured alongside of Nielsen measuring those audiences. And what came about was that iSpot reported that the size of our audience across the average minute audience was 2.9 million, where Nielsen reported 1.9 million. I mean, that's quite a discrepancy. And when we looked to try to understand of what is driving that, it really comes down to the scale of the inputs, if you will, that are being used to measure those audiences. I think when you're using a small panel where you have thousands of Hispanic households representing the US population versus many, many millions of households representing the population, I think that speaks to what I was speaking to earlier, which is, do you really understand the margin of error and the confidence level in the estimates themselves? And so I think while some want you to believe that there's some form of bias in these big data sets, I think it's also important to understand that there's also a large margin of error in small data sets that can actually have a very different impact when you're transacting billions of dollars against that. And, for us, we think that the techniques that we're seeing, many of these measurement partners who are leaning into big data, but also, looking at ways that they can bring panel not actively into the transactional metrics, but to use it to understand any types of insights or corrections that they might need to take into account. When you think about a small panel that's measuring 0.03% of the population, how do you really state that that is a more accurate view than a panel that, is measuring 33% of the population before you start to, put weighting and projections against it? So we believe that the role of a panel, should be minimized to avoid any kind of regression to limitations in those sampling methods that, quite honestly, are going to continue to struggle in keeping up with consumer viewing habits. And that's why we believe with working with multiple measurement partners is key to bring the best data forward for our advertisers so that we can unlock not only helping them find their consumer, but also unlock scaled identity data sets, which we think is key to the future.
So, how much adoption of alternative currencies do you expect over the next year? Do you still expect a bulk of the deals to be done against Nielsen guarantees? What are you sort of predicting for, for the next 6 to 8 months?
Yeah, I think we always want to give our advertisers the ultimate flexibility in the way in which they want to transact and negotiate. And we believe that there's real promise, though, in the way to transact and negotiate with these new currencies that can better connect all the impressions. As I mentioned, we have 66 very large brands who represent a significant portion of our upfront dollars who are leaning in with us and really, eager and interested in better data to help them find their consumers and transact on them. So, I think we'll start to see real movement in this upfront. And then, I think as Nielsen 1 comes out at the end of the year, as we move ahead, I think we're just going to see stronger and stronger adoption of these, multiple cross-platform currencies that are being embraced by the industry at large.
Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be paying close attention for sure as this progresses.
Great. Thank you so much.
You can hear more about the future of measurement in the video world during Ad Age's TV Pivot event, which will take place virtually on May 24th and May 25th. You can RSVP at adage.com/TV Pivot. As always, thank you to our Ad Age crew, Lauren Chiardio, Arabella Breck, and Anna Sakula for helping to make this live stream happen. And thank you all for watching.